Captain Alex Harper had always known that life on the remote planet of Kylara would be lonely. The colony station was small, barely more than a cluster of metal domes and solar panels, surrounded by endless rocky plains and jagged mountains. Most of his duties were routine: monitor wildlife populations, check environmental sensors, and record data for the Interstellar Research Council. He had trained for years for dangerous planets, harsh climates, and hostile aliens, but nothing could have prepared him for what he found one cold, dim morning. While surveying a narrow canyon carved into the eastern cliffs, Alex noticed faint movement near a shadowed cave. At first, he thought it was some common creature, maybe one of the local burrowing animals, but as he drew closer, he froze. There, huddled together, were two beings unlike anything he had ever seen. One was large and slender, her skin a soft pearly green with fine ridges along her arms and neck. Her eyes were wide, dark, and intelligent, and she clutched a small, fragile creature to her chest. The child, no taller than a human toddler, had luminous patches along its back that pulsed faintly like soft lights. Both were thin, shivering, and clearly starving. Alex's first instinct was caution. His training reminded him that alien creatures could be dangerous, even when weak. Yet as he watched from a distance, he felt a strange pull in his chest, a mix of pity, curiosity, and responsibility. He opened his pack and carefully set down some protein bars and a flask of nutrient paste, keeping himself hidden behind a rock. The mother alien watched him cautiously, her eyes tracking every movement. The child peeked over her arm, and for a moment, their gaze met Alex's. He smiled gently, a silent offer of peace. The mother hesitated. She seemed to debate something silently, her limbs tensing and relaxing, and then slowly she moved toward the food. Her child followed, tiny hands reaching out to explore. Alex held his breath, willing them to take the food without harm. To his relief, they did. The mother sampled a portion first, then nudged some toward her child. Their relief was palpable. Alex exhaled slowly, a small smile breaking across his face. That night, Alex returned to the station but couldn't stop thinking about them. He replayed the scene in his mind, wondering who they were, where they came from, and how they had survived so long in this harsh environment. The following morning he returned, bringing slightly more food, some purified water, and a blanket. The mother alien cautiously accepted it, and over the next days, a pattern began. Alex would come every morning and evening, leaving food and checking that they were safe. Days turned into weeks, and the cautious wariness between them slowly faded. The mother alien, whom Alex had started to call Sira in his mind, began approaching him more directly. She no longer flinched at his presence, and the child, whom he named Luma, would peek out from behind her, curious and playful. Alex tried to communicate using gestures and simple sounds. He drew shapes in the dust and pointed to food, mimicking eating. To his surprise, Sira began responding in her own way, pointing, touching, and making soft sounds that resembled a language of gestures. Alex quickly realized that feeding them was no longer a one-way act. Sira seemed intelligent, capable of learning and understanding intentions. Luma's curiosity was boundless. The little one would explore around Alex's feet while he worked, occasionally touching his equipment with fascination. Alex chuckled at one point as Luma tried to mimic the motions of opening a communicator. Clearly intrigued by the strange human device, the routine became almost comforting. Alex looked forward to seeing them, and even Sira seemed to anticipate his arrival. She would leave small gifts near the cave entrance, smooth stones, twisted vines, and brightly colored plants, careful tokens of trust. Alex would smile, touched by the gesture, and leave something new in return. A piece of cloth, some extra nutrient paste, or even a small trinket from his station. Though they did not speak the same language, the bond formed a silent agreement of trust, care, and understanding. But life on Kylara was never simple. One evening, as Alex was leaving food near the cave, he heard a rustling in the rocks. His training kicked in immediately. Hidden predators roamed the planet, creatures that could move quickly and strike without warning. Alex scanned the shadows, spotting a pack of thin, jagged-eyed creatures circling nearby. They were smaller than humans, but clearly carnivorous, their claws scraping against the rocky ground. He realized with a start that Sarah and Luma were completely defenseless against them. Without hesitation, Alex stepped forward, shouting and waving his arms, trying to intimidate the predators. They hesitated, glancing at him warily, but did not retreat. He grabbed a long metal rod from his pack, swinging it carefully to keep them at bay. The predators lunged, but Alex was ready, striking with precision. His heart pounded in his chest, adrenaline surging, but he did not falter. Finally, the pack gave up, retreating into the darkness of the cliffs, breathing heavily. Alex turned to see Sarah and Luma, frozen in the shadows of the cave. The mother's eyes were wide, filled with something Alex could only interpret as awe and relief. She slowly approached, placing a delicate hand on his arm, a gesture that seemed to say thank you. Recognition and perhaps trust. Luma toddled toward him, reaching out, and Alex bent down, letting the child touch his shoulder. After the predators left, Alex stayed near the cave for hours, making sure Sarah and Luma were safe. He realized in that moment that his daily visits had grown into something more significant. He was no longer just a passerby, leaving food and moving on. He had become their protector, and in return, they were becoming his family in a way he had never imagined. The following weeks tested that bond in subtle ways. Sarah began to follow Alex partway back to his station, observing his activities. She watched as he repaired equipment, monitored sensors, and recorded data. She seemed fascinated by human technology, tilting her head and reaching toward devices with careful curiosity. Luma would imitate her, crawling near Alex's feet, poking at buttons, and occasionally startling herself with strange sounds from machines. Alex realized that caring for them required more than just food. He began to consider their environment, building small shelters near the cave, making sure they were warm and protected from the planet's harsh winds. He learned about their diet and adjusted the nutrient paste accordingly, adding textures and flavors he hoped they would accept. Slowly, Sarah and Luma began to venture farther from the cave under his supervision. One evening, after a particularly long day of maintenance, Alex sat by the cave entrance. Watching the sun dip below the jagged horizon, Sarah rested near him, her long limbs curled protectively around Luma. The child's small eyes sparkled with curiosity as it reached for a piece of reflective metal Alex had left. Alex smiled, gently tapping Luma's hand to redirect it. He realized that he cared for them more than he had expected. For the first time in months, he allowed himself to wonder what it would be like if they stayed with him permanently. The thought was fleeting, almost forbidden. Humans were not meant to raise alien creatures as companions, yet the idea filled him with warmth and hope. He glanced at Sarah, who was watching him with that steady, intelligent gaze, and he felt a strange certainty. They trusted him. That night, as he returned to his station, Alex felt a quiet resolve growing inside him. He would continue to care for them, to protect them, and to build a bond that could last. The universe was vast and often hostile, but in that small cave on Kylara, something remarkable had begun. A family formed not by blood, but by choice, trust, and courage. As he lay in his bunk, staring at the dim glow of the station lights, he whispered softly to himself, "What if they stayed with me forever?" The words hung in the air, almost impossible, yet filled with hope. Somewhere in the shadows of the canyon, Sarah and Luma stirred, their presence a silent promise that tomorrow and every day after would bring them closer together. The wind outside howled through the jagged rocks, carrying with it the scent of distant storms. Alex closed his eyes, knowing that challenges would come: predators, harsh weather, and the uncertainties of the unknown. But he also knew that he had made a choice, and in that choice lay a power stronger than fear, the power of human empathy, courage, and care. And for the first time in months, Captain Alex Harper felt truly at home, not on this lonely planet, not in the cold metal station, but in the fragile, growing bond between a human, an alien mother, and her curious child. The next morning, the alien sun rose slowly over the jagged horizon, casting long shadows across the strange terrain. Alex stirred, careful not to wake Lyra, who was still asleep beside him. He looked around at the ruins they had chosen for shelter. The structure was weak, but it offered some protection from the planet's unpredictable weather. Alex knew they could not stay here forever. He moved quietly, stepping over fallen beams and glowing alien plants, scanning for anything edible or useful. The planet was harsh, but Alex had learned to rely on his human ingenuity. He gathered a few glowing berries that were edible, according to Lyra's whispered guidance from the night before, and found a small stream where water trickled with a metallic taste. It was enough to keep them alive for now. When Lyra woke, she watched him silently, her wide eyes filled with trust and curiosity. "We eat now?" she asked softly. Alex nodded and handed her a few berries. She took them carefully, chewing slowly, savoring the flavor. Alex watched her, and a protective warmth spread through him. This small alien girl had become his responsibility, and somehow that responsibility felt right. They spent the morning exploring the nearby area. Alex taught Lyra how to watch for danger, how to move quietly, and how to recognize the faint signs of predators. In return, Lyra showed him how to use the glowing plants for light and warmth. She knew where some edible roots grew and where water collected after the storms. It was clear that the planet had shaped her survival instincts. And Alex admired her resilience as they moved through a dense grove of bioluminescent trees. They heard a sound that made both of them freeze. From the shadows, a group of scavengers emerged, humanoid but larger, their faces hidden under dark armor that gleamed in the alien light. They carried strange weapons and moved with deadly precision. Lyra's grip tightened on Alex's hand, and he instinctively stepped in front of her. "You're not going to hurt us," Alex said, raising his hands to show he meant no attack. The scavengers ignored his words and advanced. Alex's mind raced. He had no heavy weapons, only pieces of metal and debris from the crash. But he was human, and humans were resourceful. He grabbed a glowing vine and swung it at one of them, catching them off guard. The others hesitated, giving him a precious moment to think. He led them through the grove, using narrow paths and low branches to slow the scavengers. Lyra followed closely, mimicking his movements with surprising skill. Using a combination of clever traps, improvised weapons, and sheer determination, Alex managed to drive the group away. One of them fell into a pit he had noticed earlier, and the rest retreated, realizing that they had underestimated the humans' cunning. After the danger passed, Alex and Lyra collapsed near a small stream. Lyra's hands shook, but she smiled weakly at him. "You saved me again," she whispered. Alex shook his head, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "We saved each other," he replied. "You were brave too." Lyra's small smile was enough to make the exhaustion fade, replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. The next few days were a mixture of exploration, learning, and bonding. Alex taught Lyra basic human survival techniques, how to make a fire from the strange alien wood, how to purify water, and how to create a simple shelter from debris. In return, Lyra taught Alex about the planet's unique ecosystem. She showed him which plants were safe to eat, which ones could heal minor wounds, and which ones could be used as tools. One evening, as the two of them rested under the glow of the alien sky, Lyra asked softly, "Do you have a family?" Alex looked up at the stars, remembering Earth and the people he had left behind. "I did," he said. "But now, I think my family is here." Lyra tilted her head, understanding more in her own way than any words could convey. She nestled closer to him, and Alex realized that the bond between them had grown stronger than he could have imagined. Days later, a sudden storm swept across the planet. The sky darkened, and winds howled, bending the alien trees until they nearly snapped. Alex worked quickly, using his knowledge of human engineering to reinforce their shelter. He tied broken branches together, dug a small trench to divert water, and used glowing vines to secure the structure. Lyra helped as best as she could, passing him tools and holding the walls steady when the wind threatened to knock them down. The storm raged for hours, the rain like sharp needles against their makeshift shelter. Outside, trees were uprooted, and debris flew through the air. Alex held Lyra close, whispering reassurances, even as he feared for their safety. His heart pounded with adrenaline, but also with determination. They would survive. Humans were built to endure, to adapt, to overcome, and he would use every skill, every ounce of courage, to keep this small alien girl alive. When the storm finally passed, the planet was battered and scarred, but they were alive. Mud covered their clothes, and cuts and bruises marked their skin, but they had survived together. Lyra looked at Alex with wide eyes filled with awe and gratitude. "You stayed," she whispered. Alex nodded, brushing the mud from her hair. "I told you I would. I'm not leaving." In the days that followed, they discovered signs of other life on the planet's small settlements, long abandoned. Traces of alien technology and hints that the planet had once been more populated. Alex and Lyra worked together to explore and gather resources, growing stronger, smarter, and more confident with each passing day. Their relationship deepened, built on trust, respect, and shared struggle. One morning, while exploring a nearby canyon, Alex found a hidden cave. It was dry, protected from the elements, and large enough to serve as a permanent shelter. He and Lyra moved their supplies there and began to make it their new home. Lyra ran her hands over the walls, her glowing eyes wide with excitement. "This safe," she said simply. Alex smiled, feeling a surge of pride. "Yes, safe for us." As they settled in, Alex realized that their survival was more than just physical. They had built a connection, a family in the middle of a hostile world. Lyra looked up at him one evening, the alien sun dipping below the horizon, painting the sky with strange colors. "Father," she whispered, her voice soft but certain. Alex felt a lump in his throat. That single word carried more meaning than anything he had ever experienced. He knelt down beside her, taking her small hands in his. "I'll always be here," he said. "No matter what comes, I won't leave you." Lyra smiled, leaning against him, and for the first time since his crash, Alex felt a sense of peace. They had faced danger, fear, and uncertainty. And yet here they were alive, together and stronger for it. Life on the alien planet remained unpredictable. They would face more challenges, more storms, and more creatures, but Alex knew that they could overcome anything. Humans had survived in impossible conditions before. And now, on a distant world, he was proving it again, not just for himself. But for Lyra, he had become more than a survivor. He was a father, a protector, and a symbol of human resilience. In the quiet of the cave, as night fell and alien stars twinkled above, Alex reflected on the journey. He had crash-landed alone, faced death and danger, and yet he had found something far more important than survival. He had found purpose, hope, and a bond that would last a lifetime. Lyra had changed him, given him a reason to fight, to endure, and to be better. He looked at her sleeping peacefully beside him and whispered, "We will face whatever comes. Together." And in that moment, surrounded by the alien world, the strange plants, and the glowing stars, Alex knew that humanity's courage, intelligence, and compassion could shine even in the darkest corners of the universe. They were a small family, alone but unbroken, and nothing could take that away. The night passed quietly, and when morning came, Alex and Lyra would rise again to face the alien world with courage, hope, and the unbreakable bond between them. Together, they would survive. Together, they would thrive. Together, they were human and alien, father and daughter, and unstoppable.